Welcome everyone. Good evening. It's Monday evening in Goa, 1st of September, and today we are talking language. We have with us a guest whom I wager you'll find interesting. The person here at this end is Dr. Wlliam R. De Silva. So Dr. Wlliam has been a prominent scholar. He's done a lot of work on Konkani for a long while, for a considerable while. He was the head of the Department of Sociology at Goa University. I knew him since the 80s when we were both young, obviously. And Dr. Wlliam was working on the field of Konkani. And he has done a lot of work, and many persons from Mangalore, from Goa, will credit him with doing a whole lot of work on the Konkani language. Doctor, your point of view on where we stand today. Uh, the issue of script is in the news, so maybe something on that, and how we can go ahead, how you see the language, what you see are shortcomings now, what you see as the gap between Goa and Mangalore, and of course other Konkani speaking areas also, but primarily it's these two areas. Over to you.
My understanding since about 2 years, 5 years now, when I negotiated once again working on Konkani dictionary, this time possibly in Kannada script, in Roman script, as well as in Nagari script, but not accepting the so-called standards created by those who have been working on Shabdakosh, as they call it, whatever. I would like to call it just kind of what I would say Konkani Uttran dies. Dies, more or less translating here the way Germans have done it, shuts, a kind of a treasure. That's how you work it out. So I call it dies, Amchen dies. So Uttrandais, Konkani Uttrandais, that goes beautifully. So I've been working on that in that sense. People called it lexicon, people called it Utraval and all that kind of thing. Vaksari too, Vaksar. But my understanding was that since we are putting it writing, you just cannot make it Vak. That is to say speech. It is writing. Now, we have a problem in Konkani. Although we write in 3 or more scripts, we have never listened to each other in terms of a common rhythm which comes out of us. Each group has been concentrating on itself, and there a few authorities have come up, like Thomas Stewart's Konkani Kendra, Goa Konkani Academy, and a few others like this. In Mangalore, the Karnataka Konkani Sahitya Academy, and then now World what's called World Culture Center, Konkani Center, and all these things have come and they have committed themselves also with a lot of finance for the future of Konkani and the unity of the Konkani. But each one sees through his caste or through Sanskrit, which is a wrong thing. You have to see Konkani developed independently of Sanskrit as we understand Sanskrit, because the Vedic society didn't have the word Sanskrit to speak for a language, it developed later. Vedic society was a society of mantras, reciting them. And if you have gone to what you call Kerala, you see the Nambudris celebrating their Vedic ritual in such a simple way. 1975, Europeans came there, Americans came there, and got the whole of their Agni Chayana celebrated there. In the whole celebration, there was only one woman who had a certain amount of role to play as the wife of the celebrant, nothing more than that. Went with him to take a bath and came back. That means women had no access to the ritual mantra. That means that language was strange to them. It was not part of their life. The question comes, what did they speak at home? Sanskrit, Vedic, mantra? No. So there must have been a language, and our whole understanding, historical understanding of Sanskrit has been there was these mantras from the very beginning as if they were speaking in their mantras. They were not. So there was what I would call today a Prakrit, and the Sanskrit mantras of Vedas, beginning with Rig Veda, were all between father and son. The daughter was not initiated, and the son was initiated not as a boy because he couldn't have spoken those mantras with those sounds. They were not possible for him because they were all articulated with a conjunct words and sounds put together. It was not possible. And people had been throughout speaking in simple, their own simple ways, first with gestures and then speaking through their mouth and things like this. So we have been continuously imposing on ourselves Sanskrit, Sanskrit, Sanskrit. And we are
I
going
remember.
back now much more than years ago.
No,
Yeah, tell
sorry
me.
for interrupting. I remember the in the 80s, you had this plan of putting together the vocabulary which was on the mouth, on the tongue of many different communities and collating it all together without
Correct.
positing one
Yeah.
as being more privileged than the other. Tell us a bit about that.
I began that in 1988. I began that in 1988 because the Jesuits, St. Aloysius College Jesuits, got a what's called a project from the government of Karnataka, Kannada and Culture Ministry, with the finance as they had given to Tulu language, and they called it Tulu Nigantu. Nigantu is Sanskrit word, Nigantu.
Meaning?
You find it already in the early Sanskrit period, uh, meaning a kind of a collection of words. Gantu means Gant.
Okay.
Nigantu means a collection of words. So it was Nirukta, the origin of the word, the root word, and Nigantu. And then you had the grammar of Panini, Ashtadhyayi. These are the few things that had developed there. Otherwise, it was an oral recitation, and people must have spoken at home what I would call today, for the sake of convenience, Prakrit, before Samyak Karoti, before the Sanskrit. Prakrit, before. Krit, made before. And they were speaking, and the girl was a Kanyadan in the Brahmin families. Kanyadan means before she matured, became adolescent, she had to be given in marriage. If she was not, she was wasted. In Karnataka, we have a story that a girl who became mature in the Brahmin family, she was sent into the forest, and a toddy tapper saw her and married her, and Koti Chennaya, the heroes of Tulu people, were born. She was not in the Brahmin family, she was thrown out. So that means Kanyadan. The father makes punya, he makes his spoon, he makes his all the requirements for his what's called salvation. He'll create it by giving the girl as a Kanyadan. He becomes a Kanyadani. Such a thing doesn't happen with the sons. Now, when we go into the culture of these people, nobody in Konkani speaks about these issues, neither in sociology, nor in culture, nor in language. Now, suppose we were to expose ourselves to this kind of thinking, which I have exposed in Goa University to my students, when they went into, for example, one of the students went into collecting the meat Gauda vocabulary and their way of working together, and she collected a huge vocabulary of meat Gauda of Goa. Now, is meat Gauda's vocabulary that of Sanskrit? Kharvi. A lot of vocabulary was collected by me from the Kharvis, both uh, Christian as well as others, Kharvis.
So what
And
you're
then
saying in effect
somewhere
is
near
that
Kankon, I collected the.
sorry for interrupting. What you're saying, Willie, is that in effect
Our leaders today, those.
every community has its own vocabulary, and we are not paying attention to that vocabulary, or privileging it in that
No,
sense in
we
any
are
way.
not. Instead of that, we are dominating over them with the Portuguese vocabulary and the Portuguese form of doing things, Latin system of writing the grammar, and then we are imposing the Sanskrit system of grammar, or here in Kannada system of grammar and vocabulary as well as the script. And we are imposing this on the people, those who had the most free caste occupational language. For example, the Gabits who fish in sweet water in Concord, Gabit. They have
Gabit.
got a vocabulary which a Brahmin doesn't have. He doesn't know. Ravindra Kelekar knew nothing of this. Uday Bembre knows nothing of this. And yet they speak in the name of Konkani. Awards and
So the
recognition
diversity
and
is being
this
lost.
and that and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do not only lost, diversity is put down systematically with the probably they don't intend it by
Yeah.
asserting themselves. Unconsciously they may be doing this, but actual diversity has been put down where really the Konkani vocabulary, Konkani sayings, Konkani stories are there. For example, there were Kadambas in Goa, Kadamba rule.
Right.
Early rule was Jain. And I have got a story from my mother who didn't even go to school, the story of Kadamba king called Durut Raichi Katha, Durut Raichi Kani, and says, Duruturai shikarek gelo, Duruturai shikarek gelo. Is there no rhythm? Shikarek veta veta, bukelo durutu, shikarek veta veta, buken bukelo durutu, tanen tanelo. What Sanskrit do you find? What Kannada do you find? Is it not pure Konkani of the time of Kadamba? And the story goes that Durut falls in love with a virgin woman sitting in the palace doing what's called discipline, not marrying but remaining a kanya. And he wants to marry her when he hears about her. And the whole story I have got in 600 pages from my mouth, from the mouth of my mother, recited for about 5 or 6 years.
Really? Wow.
And the vocabulary there
Yeah.
is so rich. You
So we are
understand
losing
me?
this
The
vocabulary
vocabulary is so
in a
rich.
word. In a
Similarly,
word, we are losing this vocabulary.
yes, yes.
And if
For
your project
example,
had come,
just to give you a
yeah.
word, I have been just
Sorry. Carry on.
if my projects come through, all those who have spoken Konkani before Saraswat, Gauda Saraswat, Panchadravida, Brahmins, and what's called Gauda Brahmins, and all that came to Goa. There was in Goa, Nandakumar Kamath has already shown Konkan people were there already, and they are spread all along the coast. And this one, the Konkani head of the Konkani department had said that some Munda vocabulary there. He said our language comes from Munda. There may be vocabulary of Munda, but Konkani didn't come from Munda. It has got an independent pre-Sanskritic structure, vocabulary, and literature, oral literature.
So this
With
thing
all
about
the
Konkani,
castes that have been in Goa,
yeah, yeah.
except
Sorry,
that
sorry.
Brahmins of Goa, those Brahmins of Goa, those who eat fish, have made a story that there was in the Saraswati river a Saraswan, and there was a famine, and the Saraswan went into the river and began to eat fish, and therefore they are eating fish. They are justifying themselves. Is this not a legitimization of their own eating fish today? Should you give
So,
importance to that story, except for the Saraswats?
William, what is your view on Konkani being an Indo-Aryan language, as it is sometimes called?
My view of we have to take a view not created by Europeans of Indo-European languages and Indology and things like that. We have to be very critical of these things on one side. On the other side, we have to be critical of the Brahminic hegemony and then see how Goa was under Buddhists, under Jains, under so many others. And all that came together at the royal level and at the level of the people in caste occupations, which were there without the imposition of the Varna system of the Brahmins. People were there. For example, a fisherman who goes to the beach to fish, he'll have dominant vocabulary of fishing, of the sea, of the shore, and so on. And there will be a division of labor between men going to the sea, women on the shore. And their stories will be about the sea and about the shore.
Right.
Now, where do you have that vocabulary in Goa Konkani Academy?
True.
Just imagine in Panjim, near the garden there in Panjim, near the church, you have got the municipal garden. There were women sitting there in Konkani, both Christian as well as others, Tharvi, and they would smoke a bidi, and at the same time they will sell their fish, and the language they spoke, I recorded, and that language, when I took it to the college, university, nobody could understand. That was
So
in
the diversity
1989 90.
the diversity of Konkani is a given, both in terms of dialects, of course, now in terms of scripts, which is come up again, and in terms of geography, in
Don't
terms of
call them dialects. You call them speech forms. Don't call them dialect because they are not dependent. They are
okay.
independent in occupation, in their
Dialect
meaning of their life, their
is a
future.
subjective, yeah, it's a judgmental term. Dialect is a judgmental term, so
Yeah.
we'll avoid that.
So call it a
So the
speech
diversity,
form,
how?
language speech form, the language of the Kharvi.
Yeah. So this diversity, really, do you see it as a pro or as a con, or how do we deal
When
with
you
it?
put it, uh, we have to deal with it in such a way that we have to put all that together, and all this diversity has got a linking element in distance from Marathi, distance from Kannada, or any other language, Gujarati or any other language come close to it. And when we today speak of Prakrits, we mean the written forms from Pali after Ashoka that came into writing with the Dhamma Lipi, which is called then Brahmi Lipi, and then it spread to the rest of India. And since Ashokan kingdom was very large, it spread to large areas, and that definitely created the written forms of Prakrits. And today we are just repeating the story Sanskrit, Prakrit, and modern Indian languages. Pure nonsense. People spoke their own languages. Mohenjo-daro, Harappa spoke their own languages. We don't know what they were. Probably some of them spoke even Indo-Aryan language, going to what is called Iranians, not so much those who were sheep keepers or cattle keepers, that is nomadic, but those who were agriculturists with cattle with them, supplementing cattle, not keeping cattle alone and wandering around. For example, when you have got cows, the whole of the cattle, and a few sheep with you, and you are grazing them, when they graze for 15 to 20 days in a place, they urinate, they defecate, you have got dung, you have got urine, and you cannot keep them there more than about 10 days to 1 month. So Aryans, if they were cattle keepers, then they could not have stayed in a place longer than 10 to 15 days. They had to roam around where there was pasture, new pasture, so that they could come back to the old pasture after, let us say, 4 5 months when the grass grows again. And if the grass didn't grow, they would have migrated to a nearby place. That is the migration of people, nomadic people. Now, all
So,
this we speak in history, but don't bring it to Konkani, understanding Konkani.
so as a sociologist, as a person who has studied the language so intensely, how would you see the way forward for Konkani today? How does it deal with all its
What I would
differences?
say is be open first and foremost, be open to the spoken language, that is, to the speech of every occupational caste, with a with a certain amount in the last after independence of religious domination, organized religious domination through the temple, through the church, or some other means. Take that into consideration. But the basis would be the spoken language of the caste occupational people, because that occupation reproduces their group to the future, to the next generations, and not Goa Konkani Academy or Catholic Church. So, since it reproduces this way, Catholic Church dominates a little more than the temple in Goa, and therefore you have to say Catholic Church will have to work it out in such a way that it takes not only the Brahmin language, which they have now translated into the Bible and their liturgy in the church when it became Konkani. I remember one of the priests from the bishop's palace saying, when I was in the committee for translating the what is called a liturgical text, "Ti amche ne re, ti tenchi re." We don't want that in our liturgy, he used to say in translation. Ti amche ne re, ti tenchi re. And he was speaking not tanchi but tenchi, Bahus language.
So that brings us
And
to
within
another
two meetings, I
contentious.
was removed from the committee because I was insisting on bringing the ordinary vocabulary.
Okay, that brings us to a contentious issue, Willie, about your.
Yeah,
I
tell
think
me.
it's your term, Padri Bash, which has ruffled a lot of feathers because you define this so-called artificial
Yeah,
language in Konkani, which grew up in the 60s after
yeah,
Vatican Council II, when the church shifted from Latin to local
yeah.
languages, as Padri
It
Bas.
is
Padri
Padribas,
Bas.
pure Padribas, Padribas.
Tell us why. Justify
Say,
why you're using that term
just
and what it
just to
is.
see the word, just see the word. So, from the Portuguese got the word evangelium, vangel, gospel, vangel. We got the word, and used to say that when translating after Vatican II, they said we used to say at that time, "Jesu Christachi bari khabar, good news," in
Good news.
English, and that word came bari khabar. In fact, when I translated my Bible in the New Testament, I said Jesu Christachi bari khabar, and everybody accepted without a word. Then now in translation they said Shubha Varta, Varta, Vartan, Gunche, Vartan, Vartaka, merchant,
So,
Varta.
yeah,
Shubha means auspicious.
suspicious.
And then they say uh, he had a beto in his hand. And they said, no, to beto ni, to tenko.
What's the difference?
Kona tenkunku,
Tenko, okay.
Padri tenkunku, Bispa tenkunku.
Okay. Tenko is a spear or lance, or
Yeah. Vocabulary.
I see.
Yeah, tenko. You know what tenko is.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to say bet and bet kati. Bet. Bet
Just
kati.
in
Something
English,
smaller.
the nuance. Sorry, crook, or how would you define it?
Bishop's crook. Yeah, Bishop's crook.
Okay, okay, okay. So William, see now, in the hurry to create a local language, and with the influence of the nationalistic fervor
You're
of
not
the
very.
60s. Sorry, okay. In the hurry to create a local
Yeah.
language liturgy, and with the nationalistic fervor of the 60s, the church has created a language which some critics will say is artificial. Okay. So
It is.
one
It
of
is.
its
That's why
so
I
one
called
of
it
its
Padribas.
so one of its symptoms is it's very Sanskritic by nature. But to play devil's
Yeah.
advocate, if you need to translate, say, Konkani into to get theological concepts, I think
Yeah.
Sanskrit, being another language of liturgy, has these kind of concepts, though they could be misleading at times. So would it not be natural to borrow from Sanskrit in that sense?
How would you put the word, for example, Sanskrit word Sanskrit word Brahmana means in Latin flamen, which means a flame. Flame. Flammarium, flamen. That is the translation of Brahmin, Brahmana, Brahmana, or Brahma, or Brahman. That's the translation. Because they were dealing with fire. And the fire was up in the heavens. The fire was also with the what's called your thunder and lightning. Indra had all those kind of things in his hand. That means the whole of the heavens was synthesized in Rigvedic chant. They were with the fire. Until today, in the 21st century, they are with the fire, Agni. Agni Chayana. The service is
Yeah.
called Agni Chayana.
So your point is
Now,
that translating, borrowing these terms can be misleading, can be misleading at times.
misleading, yeah, misleading, and the meaning could be dispersed.
Totally different. It's like Chris Prasad. For example, Komiao has become
Yeah,
Chris
it could
Prasad.
be totally different.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
because the concept of prasad is very different from communal
Prasad.
in that
Prasad
sense.
can mean,
Yeah,
Prasad has got two meanings, one positive and one negative. Positive meaning is when you go to a temple and what the god has eaten, leftover is given to you, and that is called prasad, leftovers of gods.
yeah, yeah,
Now, when you go to the church, the Jesus' sacrament is not leftover of Jesus.
yeah.
It is
There's
done
another thing.
precisely in symbols in a different way.
There's another thing there. Say prasad.
Yeah.
If you offer me prasad and I don't accept it, I'm offending you. Whereas
Hmm.
communion, if you offer it to
Yeah.
me and I'm not supposed to be accepting it because I'm not part of the community, I'm causing a problem to you. So there is a kind of conflict going on there. So
Hmm.
anyway, coming back to the point,
Yeah.
William, without getting
You
lost in
can't. You
details,
won't be
how
giving that communion to others. Others.
correct,
Yeah. Yeah.
correct.
It's not
So which
details. I mean, this is where the language is formed. Ideas
yeah,
are formed. Opinions are formed. Yeah.
which is
And
why we
that's why
need
you
all those
require your
announcements.
language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need all those announcements before
And
communion that
therefore,
you know it's
and
it's
and
Chris
prasad, look here, there
yeah,
is a very negative idea of prasad when someone defecates in an area, especially a child defecates. There are parents who say, my child has defecated. It's a misuse. It may look like a misuse, but that is the common
yeah,
word that is being used by everyday people.
I see. So how does Konkani deal
For
with
example, in
diversity?
Goa, there was a time
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Konkani has refused to deal with Konkani has refused to deal with diversity from the time of Shanai Goimba. His grammar is a complete rebuttal of Marathi and Konkani and rebutting Marathi to enhance Konkani. And his
How
Konkani with
rebuttal?
Sanskritic background, they are prepared to say Marathi has got less of Sanskrit than Konkani. Many have not read Shanai Goimba, his Vyakaran, his grammar book. I have asked among those who are advocates of Konkani grammar, I have asked how many have read him from page 1 to last page. Not many.
So what's the problem there?
The problem is that he was trying to establish the uniqueness of Konkani as opposed to Marathi.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the
You find it
historical
in the
context
first few
is there.
pages.
The
Yeah,
historical
yeah.
context is there because
Historical,
Samyukta Maharashtra and the states being formed on linguistic lines
but it
and
was
the caste
Shanai
conflict.
Goimbab as a Brahmin, Shanai Goimbab as a Brahmin was doing it, but the Karvi was not doing it because he was speaking his Konkani.
Yeah, yeah,
Gabit was not doing it. The Mar was not doing it. For example, the Gaudi was not doing it. The Meat Gauda was not doing it because he was satisfied with the kind of cycle of his life. He had no problem. But Shane Goimbab had a problem because he claimed to be representative of the language at a higher level.
so give us a picture of Konkani in Karnataka today. I mean, like the script issue and
The
how it
kind of
plays out.
Konkani we revived. See, Konkani came to be written somewhere around the 1912s, the first decade of the 20th century. Uh, Once the Jesuits educated people and dominated the so-called the Baman Konkani of Mangalore. Rest of the Konkanis were kept aside, and in fact there was a between Brahmawar and Mangalore, Bhadravado and propaganda. Jesuits represented propaganda when they came here at the end of the 19th century, and they had a schism. They were a separation from Brahmawar, who were by and large Sadde and lower caste, not Brahmins, and it happened at a linguistic level. In fact, when they read my Bible now, Bible Poilani Dusoro Karar, when the Brahma people read it, they say it is very close to all what we speak. Now, what has happened is the language was imposed, and that came to be written in Kannada script, and the way of writing began to change. In some places, they began to use Sanskritic patterns of what is called Lopa Sandhi, Agama Sandhi, Adesha Sandhi, Sandhi, and all those kind of things, which were not part of Konkani's way of going about it. For example, if you have a word like Konkung, Kongta, Sukne, Savne, Ambo Kongta,
Picking.
Konkunku. The Naka would be Konki Naka. Maka, portant Kongta, Konkonku, Konkunku nahi, Konkonku, Konkanaka, Konkanaka. It is what is called an event word, not a transitive word. Ambo Sukne Kongta is a transitive word. Now, there is no distinction of what is called Zautar verb, Karutar, and Karayutar. Barai is a Kannada word, Baraha, Barai. But when you say Barpa, Barap and Barpa, you destroy that word because there is a Ya, Barai, Baro, Baraita, Barai Naka. But when you shorten it and say writing, is don't say baraup, many say barup. Wrong. It comes from Kannada language. If you take it likup, likini, and therefore likup, then the word changes. Leak, likunk. Now, when you don't make this distinction, and then, for example, tsukong, to tsuklo, is a zam word. There is no object into that word. Transitive verb. It is not a verb. Transitive verb. To tsuklo, to podlo. There is no transition of the sound. There is only an event that is taking place. Zauru, utrache zauru, to podlo. Therefore, what do you say? Padanaka. And what do people say? Upper class, Pudunaka. Tsukunaka. No, that is wrong. Even Pratap Naik says the same thing. Pudunaka, Tsukunaka, Tsukunku, Pudunku. No, Padanaka, Tsukanaka. Therefore, Padong, Tsukong. But Katrunku, Katrinaka. Katranaka you don't say. Katrinaka, Katarinaka. Darinaka, Darinaka. Who makes the distinction? People make in their everyday speech.
Wlliam,
People make this distinction in their everyday speech. But
true. In the 50 years you've been studying Konkani, how have you seen it change? 50 more years, more than 50, 60 probably.
Yeah. 60 years.
Yeah, how have you seen it change?
65 years I have been studying Konkani. I wrote my first article at the age of 13.
Wow.
The change is for the worst.
Why?
Not for better.
Why?
For the simple reason nobody wants to reflect over what they are writing. They write because they want to write and make a name. Poetry, story, and this and that. For example, I wrote a simple poem called Buim Bagi Bair, Buim Bag. What they say is that is paradise, Buim Bag, Konkani, Buim Bag, garden. They say Bhumi Vaikut belongs to Vishnu. Bhui Vaikut. You understand me? Even the Jesuits
Yeah.
who came to Goa did the same thing. Vaikuntha.
Vaikunt is a Vaishnavite
Now
heaven.
you take Kailas.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vaishnavite. You take Kailas, belongs to
Saivite
Shiva.
heaven.
What is Kailas
Yeah.
in Latin? Kaeli, Cheli, heaven. It is
Okay.
Cheli, Caeli, but when you pronounce it in Latin as well as in English, C with a A becomes Ka, C with a E becomes C, say, not K. Therefore, C has got with A, S sound, with A, Ka sound, even in Latin, also in English. Therefore, Cecilia, you call it Cecil in Konkani. No problems of this type at all. Cecil, how do you write? Not with C, but Sisil. Cecil. In Roman also, you should write Cecil, not C, S.
Yeah.
Will they do
Right.
it? No, because they will say, now I'm saying C पहिले असेल.
Right. So share
You
with
get
us
my
some
point, no?
experiences. Share with us, yeah, of course. Share with us some experiences of your
Oh,
stay in Goa. You spent about 10, 15 years here?
my
Long time.
10 years. 10 years. My experiences of staying in Goa was I came there because I had a dictionary work here in Mangalore with the government of Karnataka and the Jesuits, St. Aloysius
Yeah.
College. So I made a group of 10 people and trained them in linguistics and lexicography and then send them around. And in Goa, I came myself, my sociology students, political science students who came to me, the history students who came to me, and then Konkani students who came to me. I told them, you when you go home, you listen to your parents and collect your proverbs and sayings and whatever kind of songs you have got from the past, not done today, from the past, as they narrate, older people narrate at home, and get me the vocabulary of your generation, generation above you, generation above that. That is called in anthropology zero generation plus one plus two. That means you are speaking to all your people, uncles and aunties and this and that, until your great grandfather, their children. So what happens now? One complete family comes within you. That is a
Yeah.
what is called a kin group. Now there is a caste group. Two kin groups come together. 10 kin groups come together, create a occupational caste. They will be speaking more or less the same language. Now I asked the students to collect their stories, and one girl, I told her, meet Gaudo. She did a beautiful work, and then later on she did a PhD on that, and now she is a lecturer and a professor somewhere in Goa. Another one did on her own caste, Christian but not Brahmin, with our wedding rituals and wedding stories. Where, for example, when you come to the cross by the roadside, originally there was a gumti. Gomata means beautiful. Gomti means the beautiful thing that you have got, your neck. That is called gomti. And gomto means that beautiful thing.
Okay.
And therefore, the statue of any god that was kept in the roadside was called gumti. And there is Gumto, Karkal Gumto, Shravana Medagala Gumto. He is called Gumto because he is supposed to be beautiful. Now, that Gumti, instead of that, Christians put a cross there. Today, Hindus go there as if it is still a Gumti, old Gumti. And that some students studied that and said how the two syncretic elements come together of the Gumti, and then cross. How Christians and others worship there because they have got an attachment to that place, and that is supposed to be Shim Bandhav. When a girl
The
leaves her house
border,
to
border.
go to
Yeah.
her husband's place, she comes to the Shim, turns back, her brother pours water to her feet. This is what they saw, and then says, "Aichan, तुझे आमगेल्या कुटुंबाचे ऋण काबार झाले. ऋण नाही, ऋण.
Rune
The
meaning?
debt you have got to our family
Okay.
is finished. You don't have. It is run.
Okay.
Reen, the debt in terms of money. Run, what I owe you. You
Okay.
don't owe to our original family nothing. It is in the husband's family. Now, that one, if you can reconstruct in the language of the people as they spoke it, then you have got such rich vocabulary.
Yeah.
And this the students collected. I have got their papers, and I told them, instead of giving 20% marks as homework, I'll give you 40%. And the registrars were angry with me.
But your generation was the first.
And they never asked me to correct a single paper and set a single paper.
Okay. Your generation was the first that came to Goa, and soon
First
after
one.
the setting up of the university, and indulge in a lot of Goa related research and all. Then, would I be right? A whole lot, no?
Yeah, 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 that would be right. In fact,
Yeah.
it was 10 years of deep work. In fact,
That is,
Madhavi got her orientation there.
yeah. I see. Very
If she
interesting.
was there today, she would have told you that she got the orientation there and not from Ravindra Kelekar.
Yeah.
And Ullas Bhuya, who was singing, I had brought him to Mangalore before coming to Goa. He was singing there the songs of others. For example, all those kind of songs that were created, Am Chengoy, Am Chengoy, Am Chengoy, Am Chengoy, and all that kind of thing. And here he became absolutely famous, Ullas Bhuya. His daughter was in Konkani department, and she told me, "Can you tell me something about my father which I can put together?" I don't know where she is now.
I see. I see.
Similarly, there are quite a few students whom
Yeah. Whom you shaped and
more than
mentored, and
about instead of having about 50 students in my sociology department, I had more than about 500 to 600 students were interacting in Konkani.
yeah, true. Informal and formal, formal and informal, both.
But then I couldn't carry on because of I was had three interviews to be a professor, and from the day one, when I was a temporary lecturer, I came there as professor. Passed the interview. The professor who had already appointed me as professor, he said, "You don't need another interview because we have promoted you as professor." But the vice chancellor would not appoint me, and three of my interviews he just brushed aside, and that's why I had to resign.
You were here from about the
Dubashi,
late 80s to late 90s?
88, 88 to 90, 88 to 97.
97. Almost a decade. Almost a decade. Very important
Yeah,
years in the life of
Peter
Goa
is
University. Really, as far as say the Goa Mangalore Konkani equation
yeah.
goes, how does it work as of now? Is it a healthy
Germany
one,
to teach
unhealthy one?
there because I have studied there for 6 years. In six departments, I had studied. So, so Germany asked me to come back to Osnabrück University and teach the social sciences of India, on India, anthropological and political and historical, rather than European social sciences. And it is there for the first time, 97. I got what is called Information Society books from Manuel Castells from University of Southern California, Annenberg School of Communication and Journalism. Extraordinary introduction to the what you call IT, that is internet communication, internet technology,
Yeah.
information technology, and his title of his 3 volumes was Information Age. It is like a network. There is no center in the network, in the net, like a rampon, rampon garage, rampon. There is no center. You take
Yeah.
it, take everything in. So he developed that concept, and in Germany, I gave this concept and came back and trained the journalists of a Kannada daily paper.
Really, as far as the Goa Karnataka equation on the Konkani front goes, how is it? How has it been?
Very, very poor, except for these few people, those who say that they are working for Konkani, but the Konkani is the imposition of their own kind of ideas on others, not
So what?
taking the speech
Yeah.
forms of the people. and coordinating them in such a way that you can discover a common element there, dynamic element, and not imposed uniformity and what's called supervised kind of a teaching of language in writing. No, not that. It should be dynamic, coming from all spoken forms of language, which are living forms, which change. And no language which is spoken changes. Dead languages don't change. And anything that is written down is dead unless you read it again.
So
The books
this
that you
is
put there on internet, the
this
books
is
you put
true.
on the internet today,
Sorry. Yeah.
yeah,
Carry on. Please.
yeah, the books that we put on the internet today is like books in the library that are not read. And you can put anything on the internet. So much of Goan Konkani is being spoken on, but when they speak their Konkani, their songs and all that kind of thing, they don't pretend. They do their own kind of Konkani in their own way. That I enjoy and take down the vocabulary.
So the
Just
you
today, this morning,
Yeah, yeah. You had made the point, Willie, that Mangalorean Konkani is closer to speech form of
Bardesi,
Goan
Bardesi, Bardesi,
Bhardeji. Why?
Bardesi in the Roman script,
Why?
in the Roman script.
They
That is
took it.
because the the Saraswat Brahmins and the Gauda Saraswat Brahmins who also came down, and the Mangalore Brahmin Christians have got what's called a family relationship there, caste relationship, are speaking totally two different languages. They will say jatta, vatta. This is how they will speak. Jatta. They won't say jata. Takka. They won't say taka. Taka, maka, tuka. Makka, tukka, takka. They will say. From where does that accent come? Don't have. How did they acquire it? With the influence of Tulu. Tulu has got
So,
this so-called doubling of letters, consonantal letters. Kannada has got that. And they have been exposed to that. They have spoken their Konkani in that way.
so being a
And
small
that is what
language,
Konkani, World Konkani Center is doing. Yeah,
Konkani has got influenced by a whole lot of other languages, whether it's Sanskrit,
correct.
Marathi, Portuguese, sometimes maybe Hindi to a lesser
I wouldn't say.
extent, English. Sorry.
Sanskrit is not a influence. Sanskrit is not an influence that has come on Konkani. It has been imposed by a few people, by a few groups. Marathi has come because of the closeness, but with the Marathi Konkani controversy, it has come after the liberation of Goa, 1961. It has come because there was a movement, political movement to attach Goa to Maharashtra, and there in that controversy, Marathi has been opposed. Otherwise, Marathi would not have been opposed. People, lower people had accepted that. And when this imposition of Konkani came from above, they preferred Marathi because it was easier in terms of
So
writing.
we probably need an alternative history of Konkani now. But one thing that was on my mind was, where does Marathi stop and Konkani start? Because there is this full Konkan belt where people are speaking some
No,
form of
for
intermediate.
I'll give you one example.
Yeah,
In Marathi, Jnaneshwar is written in Vovi form. Vovi form. The same form was accepted by Father Thomas Stevens in his Krista Puran, Vovi form.
yeah.
Vovi is a form not literary, but in people's Vovio, wedding, Vovi. Now, what has happened is in Mangalore, people are so ignorant, they say not Vovi with a meter, uh, Sovo, Sovo Surgarunu, Hantulali Susi. Sovo, Sovo Surgarunu, Hantulali Susi. Mani, Manik Nipazala, Vareta Dave Kushi. Doesn't it sound beautiful?
True.
This is
True.
how boy and girl, after their wedding, are put together and two parties are made. And the parties were called, they used to sing what is called Zotyo. Zotyo means this one sings on the boy's
Yeah.
side, praising him. This other group sings the girl's side, praising her. Zotyo.
Yeah.
Now they said, they called it in the Portuguese word, verse. That
Yes.
is
Yeah.
destroying the originality. It was
Yeah.
Zotyo, Wovio and Zotyo. Wovi, Wove. And now Wove, Wowu, Mataro, Gowu, Amche Okelik. That is a
It's still
it's called
happening in
a
some
way
in
of
some communities. It still happens. Yeah, it still happens in very very tiny sections. But
yeah.
so in
Yeah.
that
Now
sense,
that Wovi has
now
been misunderstood here, as if it is
sorry, please, please.
no, that word Wovi,
Yeah.
Wove has been misunderstood today in such a way. They say Woive, as if they are asking Woive, Sarkeve, and that also in the Gauda Saraswat Konkani and not Christian Konkani. To that extent, they have destroyed it, and this comes from Man Soban of Ericos area.
Dr. Willie, as far as two smaller dialects of Konkani goes, Malayalam script and Perso-Arabic, what's your understanding of those? What is the state of them today?
They have Malayalam had developed their own kind of center in such a way that the Konkani movement in Goa for recognition of Konkani came not from Goa but from Kerala.
In which year this is?
The Malya from Kerala.
Yeah.
This is in 1970s after the
70s.
opinion poll.
Okay.
He was the one who gave the impetus for the Konkani. The Parishad was already taking place, but for the recognition of Konkani, Malya was the one who gave, Purushottam Malya was the one who gave the impetus. It was accepted by the Saraswats of Goa, and then the whole thing began to spread as a political move for recognition of Konkani.
Yeah.
And people have forgotten Purushottam Malya. I was in very good contact with him.
I see.
And it is at
What's
the,
your
you may not remember,
yeah.
1977, I organized the 100th birth centenary of Sharanai Goimbab in Mangalore, not in Goa,
I see. I see.
1977. That was my last action with the Konkani, official Konkani in the Sahitya Academy and Goa Academy.
What was your
After that, I have
experience with
not dealt with him in any official way.
what was your experience with the Sahitya Academy?
Very bad.
In what sense?
Very bad, because the president of the Sahitya Academy, who had come to Goa in 1974 when there was a writers conference, and I had brought a large amount of writing in Konkani as a vocabulary, that I had
Yeah.
told him that the largest amount of writing is done in Mangalore and not in Goa, in Roman or in Nagari.
Hmm.
And he agreed with that, and he said, when I see your, and Ravindra Kelekar had done a small booklet putting a few of those books together as a kind
Yeah.
of a bibliography to say that there is a lot of Konkani literature. But I told president, Sahitya Academy president, it is not the case. The case is that the largest amount of writing has taken place in Mangalore from 1912 onwards with the starting of what is called Kongnindirwe paper.
Starting off
And
Kokni?
I have republished him,
Yeah.
Konkani Dirwe.
Dirve.
Dirwe, Konkani Dirwe, till
Yeah.
1938. Yeah, from
I see.
1912 till 1938, when the diocese of Mangalore dominated and they said this Dirwe has become critical, therefore we
Okay.
must have a diocesan paper, they started Rakno.
Rakna.
And the man who was writing for Dirwe became the editor of Rakno.
Okay. There's a hidden history of Konkani which we are not aware of. So anyway. So
Yeah,
then we are talking
not
about
only hidden, this
Sahitya
is
Academy.
actually living
Sahitya
history.
Academy,
What we have got is
living history.
artificial history at the moment.
No, so then how did the Sahitya Academy somehow accept Devanagari
You
in
have got
that
a
sense?
surface history.
Yeah.
No,
No.
in the meeting when I was a member of the first Sahitya Academy advisory committee, the president was willing to say for the next 30 years we can have Roman, Kannadi, and Nagari as scripts that are going ahead. In the meantime, you try to decide among yourself to go in for one and carry on.
This is which year? This is
But
which
then they
year?
said no,
Okay.
1976, 77.
Okay.
And then they said no. Kelekar and your Kenny and Bembre and there were a few others, and they wanted by all means not to give the prize to Pandit. You know Pandit, Gauda
RV
Chengit.
Pandit. RV Pandit. RV Pandit.
I proposed that book, Gauda Chengit. They said no, it has to be R.V. Pandit. Yeah, R.V. Pandit. Raghunath Vishnu Pandit. He was a photographer.
Yeah.
And I suggested Majengit Gaudache because
Hmm.
there he had gone beyond his Brahminness into the Gaudi life where he was praising the Gaudo and describing him. They said
Yeah.
no, it has to go to Kedekar and Himalayan. Then I said I resign and I have never come close to Sahitya.
Hmm. Interesting. So the way ahead, what is the way ahead, William? What would you suggest if you had a magic wand and you could somehow tell us
Way ahead is, if
the
I
way
had a
ahead?
magic wand, I'll go to more and I'll train school children, school boys, and so on, college boys, and tell them,
Yeah.
like I did it in Goa with my first 4 years. I'll ask the students to go around, collect the vocabulary, collect the what's called the sayings and songs and of people in by their by their celebrations at home, their weddings and their devotions and this and that, and get a vocabulary and the whole idiom of Konkani, and see the common elements, put the common elements together into the dictionary. Non-common elements you give as limiting factors in the dictionary. First meaning would be the common element. Second meaning will be of this group, of that group, of that group. That would be the best dictionary you can create. And that's how I had worked it out.
The situation you're
Like you
describing,
have got, yeah.
the situation you're describing, is it specific to Konkani alone, being a small language shaped
No,
by
it
a
is
very
also for
short?
English even. English, Southeastern London English is the BBC, was the BBC English. Now it has become global.
Yeah.
Then you had the English of Irish people. Then you had of Scottish people. Then you had so many Englishes there within England, and there was Royal English, Queen's English,
Yeah.
and there was what is called Standardized English, and there was Common English, Wales English, Prince of Wales's English, and then you have got American English, you have got Australian English, you have got Indian English, you have got Hong Kong English, wherever the English were. All these Englishes come together today, and when you write, you always make mistakes of writing the spelling of America or Australia or Britain.
True.
Aren't you making
And
the mistake? Even
correct.
today.
And for other Indian languages, it's the same where you have a hegemony over the language,
if
or is it?
english if English as a global language has this problem, and
Yeah.
the one best representative of English now, one who created the uh, what is called the encyclopedia of English from the Oxford, this one, Cambridge University, those volumes. Now he will say even the English of what is called your email, writing I with the I, and
Yeah.
then making short forms and all that. He says that is also global English. He wouldn't refuse it. We have to take example of that man. I forget his name now. One who did
Okay.
the Encyclopedia of English literature from Cambridge.
So, so anything else
He is a
that
man who speaks in the global English, but including the language of email.
really nice. Tell us anything that I forgot to raise or ask you, or something that you feel should be recorded.
No, what I would suggest is what I say just 4 5 days ago. There was a meeting yesterday on Sunday of all the church magazines and Rakuno and a few other people coming together in the bishop's house in Mangalore. And I wrote to him a translation of two poems where a poet says, my father's time language was like this, my mother's time whole life has changed. I said, in your father's time, life was all of birds and this and that and nature. Now it has become commercial and industrial and so on. And I said, your language, your father's language was purer of all those things, and your language has become commercial and has become industrial. And again, I made a contrast of that poetry and sent it to the meeting yesterday. And I said, if you want, I'll expose this and let us say, find a common denominator to teach it in the schools. He never invited me. Just wrote an email saying that tomorrow on Monday, when I'm in the office, I'll contact you. Till now, he has not contacted me.
On that note, there's so much that could be discussed, and I'm so grateful, William, that you have taken the time, Dr. William, you have taken the time to download all these small disparate pieces of information, which is very important for us to understand where we came from, where we are going
Yeah.
wrong, what we should be doing, and all that. uh, Maybe this discussion should
For me,
continue
this has
with.
been besides my teaching other subjects. It is at the moment since about 20 years. I've been teaching only by and large on ecology, and there I have created from the great what's called the great evolutionary theorist Jesuit called Teilhard de Chardin, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. You must have heard of that name. He
Yeah, yeah.
created that vocabulary not of what's called physics, chemistry, and so on, cosmology, and so on. He called it cosmogenesis. He called it biogenesis, evolutionary. He called it anthropogenesis. He called it noogenesis. And because he was a Jesuit and a Catholic, he called it the next phase will be, he said, Christogenesis. I cancelled it. And then finally he said the world comes to an end, and that will be point omega, Bible, point omega. I removed the point omega, I removed the Christogenesis, and I said planetary ecogenesis, regeneration of planet from the hands of human beings who are destroying it. And that I have been teaching now for the last 15 years. And
Thanks
this comes
so much.
from a very
Yeah.
good group. This comes from a very good group from America, those who are in the Pierre Teilhard de Chardin tradition, and they have done a beautiful film. You should see it. The Journey of the Universe, Joe 2. The Journey of the Universe, Joe 2. And it is an award winning film. See that film, Joe 2, the Journey of the Universe, and that whole team you will come in contact with. And what they are doing on the Journey of the Universe, they offered a course. I did that course online, free, and now they are sending me every week their future work. And Thomas Berry was the one who lifted it up, brought all religions, all tribes of the world together to say the future of the world is not Brahminic, not English, not Sanskrit. The future of the world is from the lowest tribal with his language, survival. And he
Very
gave the
important
example.
message.
There is a woman,
Yeah.
yeah, and he gave an example saying there is a
Yeah.
woman in Latin America in Amazon Valley who was the only woman left to speak her language. So what she did was she caught a parrot, brought it up so that it could speak with us, so that she could speak her language and the parrot could repeat, so that the language could survive. Imagine. This is the story.
And
So
on
we
that
are
note,
at a juncture.
yeah, on that thought, we will conclude here, William. We have so much to speak about.
I hope it is
Whenever I
useful for you for
it
the
is very much, and we should continue this discourse some other time,
yeah,
where you can tell us more nuggets of information, which is very interesting.
yeah.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I know it was
Now
hurried.
that lady, Flora Cortina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, Flora Cutina, if she is
Castellino.
working on a
Castellino.
Konkani in a Roman script,
Flora
I will,
Flora
because
Castellino.
she has done very good work. Castellino. She has done very good work with what she had given you in terms of words. And if we can continue together, it would be a great thing working together.
Maybe we need more people to join this discussion. I'll do it next time. Thanks for that idea. We will get more
You
people
are in
into this
contact with her?
discussion. I
Yeah,
am very much. I'm in touch with Professor Flora. I'm very much in touch with her.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Bye for now, Wlliam. We'll
Okay.
do it
Thank you
again.
very
We'll
much
come
for
back
this.
again.
Thank
Promise
you
to
so much.
everyone
Bye.
who watches
Bye.
this that we are going to
Yeah.
do it again
Yes.
once more
I'll
on a totally different subject with a
I'll
totally
prepare more
different audience.
vocabulary. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.